the biggest challenge was the language barrier. I had taken English classes in the Dominican Republic. I had a basic knowledge, conversational proficiency, I guess, or fluency in the language, but it didn't go beyond, I'm fine, how are you? Like it was like, hi, how are you? I'm fine, how are you? Like what you learned in class.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, in middle school, like, even though I was able to be with peers who were immigrants, who shared a similar experience that had come from, their countries, and I was in a bilingual program. So it was familiar, but then, you would come across people that would talk to you in English really fast, and I'm like,
Welcome to Mindset Mastery with Julissa Edwards, the podcast dedicated to helping high performers unlock their true potential and cultivate a powerful mindset for success. I'm your host, Julissa Edwards, a mindset coach and advocate for healthy high performance. Join me on this transformative journey as we delve into strategies, insights, and inspiring conversations with experts and thriving high performers. Get ready to master your mindset, elevate your performance, and create a life of purpose and fulfillment. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome back on a new episode of Mindset Mastery with yours truly, Julissa Edwards. Today, I get to interview an amazing friend, colleague, teacher, Helen Yu-Holguin. She is a dedicated educator with close to a decade of teaching experience. Helen teaches second grade at a private school in scenic Long Island, New York. Beyond the classroom, she's a vibrant soul with an array of passions from sports and dance to being a home decor enthusiast. Her IG profile is linked below. You must give it a click for inspiration. And her heart is devoted to her family and her friends, especially her adorable new puppy, Bailey, making her a loving dog mom. What's really special about this episode is that Helen dives deep within her experiences becoming an educator and how education for her has always been such a strong pillar in her life, coming from the Dominican Republic, migrating to the United States, and making a life for herself here, and how her upbringing and her teachings from her parents have really instilled and paved the way for her today. And how she's learning how to take it easy from being this high performer and go getter. It's a beautiful episode, and I hope you enjoy. So, tell us a little bit about why you're a teacher, right? And that's a really important part of your identity that you take much pride and passion in. And can you tell us a little bit more as to why that is so and how that came about?
wow, great question. I get this question all the time. Why are you a teacher? Like, what led you to become a teacher? I think my love for school is what's been constant in my life. And I think education in general is something that I know we'll dive deeper into this later, but I think education has just been so central in my life. And I think that once I was thinking about what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, it was kind of like this easy answer of leading, inspiring, mentoring, teaching. And I think that in many ways, I wear this teacher hat. So it just seems so fitting to kind of go into this path in which I can make a greater impact other than like my inner circle.
I love that. And can you tell us how, growing up, coming from a different country, I know we'll get into details as we move further along, but how has education been this constant pillar for you that continues to exemplify that this is what matters for you in your experience?
Definitely. I think when I think about my childhood in the Dominican Republic, I think my fondest memories were we would get out of school and we would be comparing like how we performed on a test or how our day went or what we learned. And it kind of developed this like competitive nature in me to kind of like rise to the occasion and be the best I can be in school. So I remember like my brother has always been very school smart, and he always had higher grades than me. So I remember like my dad would ask like, okay, check your report cards, like what did you get for math? And my brother would say, and I would say oh, I got a 95. And my brother would say, I got a 98. And then it would be like, okay, what about social studies? And I said, oh, I got a 90. My brother would be like, I got a 92. So it was like this constant, like, hunger to be better. And I don't necessarily think that it was negative. It didn't have a negative impact on me. It just kind of made me want to be like more hungry to learn to. And at the time, I think my perspective has changed as a teacher. I think at the time, like those metrics were so important, like the test scores or that quantitative, metric was so important. And as a teacher, I don't see that at all. And I also teach younger grades. So the numbers and the grades are not as important
Mhm.
to me. But at the time, going to a traditional Catholic school in the Dominican Republic, that was how you were defined as a student. And I think that made me kind of like want to, really be into my schoolwork, into education. And I don't know if I answered your question, but I kind of like circling back, I guess, when did my drive for education begin? I would say it starts as early as me being in school, coming out of school and realizing like, school is important for whatever reason. I don't know that yet, but my dad seems to really care about this. And
Mm.
so as I got older, I realized that my mom and dad both had very limited educational backgrounds. And I think to my parents, like, even though I was living comfortably and my dad had a business, he didn't have the schooling and the opportunity that I had. And so to him, it was always really important that I went to school, and it was kind of like your golden ticket to success, or like it was your ticket out
Mm.
of poverty, or you know what I mean? Like it just seemed like so important to him. And I didn't realize that at the moment. I just knew, okay, well, school seems to be like what's important here, and my family values that, so I'm gonna value that. So I kind
Yeah.
of grew into that. And as I got older, and even today, I still have conversations with my dad that just open up so much about his sacrifices and his experience, that kind of like, you know, um, turn on this light bulb and just revalidate for me why he instilled education in me so much.
I love that. So I gained so like from your answer, I'm able to recollect so much or collect so much insight because I mean, as you know, you can tell us so much more being your perspective of being a teacher. Our childhood years are so pivotal. We're sponges. We absorb everything at that age. And, I always teach from the ages of 0 to 7 specifically. We're primarily in our unconscious mind. So we're picking up everything culture, influence, language, peers, leaders, caregivers, teachers, like whoever's in our world, we're soaking it all in, especially during that time. And so, what I'm hearing from you is that from a young age, there was this healthy competitive side because it was important. It was valued in your household education. And just learning a little bit about your parents is that they didn't get to have that, so they like super instilled it within their children to like we value education, and we're going to continuously talk about this to this day and age. I know your dad just turned 80, right?
Yes.
You're still talking about this now, reflecting and remembering the huge impact that it had on you. So much so you became a teacher,
Hmm.
right? And I'd love to hear your take because it sounds that from a young age, going to a traditional school in Dominican Republic, traditional school setting to what you do now, you were one of my first friends that even taught me what a charter school was, right? Or different forms of education. And I know you must see a completely different side of the way that we absorb information, what's more important than just grades, all that stuff. So, what has being a teacher taught you about education?
It's like the complete opposite of how I viewed education. I guess to lead with that, I think, like I said, it was really rooted in tests, or it was rooted in the amount of homework that you did. It was rooted in how well you did your homework. I went to a Catholic school, so it
Mm.
was, school was about getting your work done, and it was also about behaving really well. And if you didn't behave well, there were consequences, and the consequences are not acceptable, right? Like they're not acceptable in today's age. So I think that was my understanding of education. Then I went into, the School of Education program at our college, and I dove a little bit more into what education means in the United States, right? Like in this country, from a teacher standpoint, what is education? What does education look like? I guess what I'm trying to say is the evolution of how I viewed education has been so grand from my experience as a student in the Dominican Republic, my experience as a student here, and then what I took from college. And I don't necessarily believe the same beliefs I had when I was a teacher, when I was
Mm.
studying to be a teacher. And one prime example is it was still very much about standardized tests. And when I was taking classes, it was all about the Common Core standards and this and that. And then it turns out I have yet until this day worked at a school where I've had to follow these Common Core standards,
Oh,
where
wow.
it's been like charter school based, where you kind of, they create their own curriculum, where you create your own curriculum. And now I work at a private school, um, in which we follow certain curriculums, but we can adapt them. We have more leeway. So I think now
Mm.
my definition of education has changed so much, and my biggest takeaway or learnings from education and being a teacher isn't what I always thought it was. It isn't just the academics. It's so much more than that. And I think, one of my beliefs and, values as a teacher is social emotional development and social emotional learning. That comes up so much in my lessons. That comes up in how I interact with my students. That comes up with even how I interact with my nieces and nephews, like my family members who are
Mm.
younger than me. It comes up so much, and it kind of has opened my eyes so much to, kind of like this teaching the whole child can transfer to understanding a whole person and not
Yeah.
just focusing on one aspect of them, but really looking at, you know, where they are in all aspects of who they are and their different identities. So
Mm.
it's really been transformative, like how I view education now. And I know this is not an education podcast, so I don't want to bore you with that information, but I do think that it's very transferable
Yeah.
to how I view the world even.
Well, let's talk about it because so this is mindset mastery, right? And so for anyone that doesn't know, like what I mean, I help people master their mindsets, and a lot of the work that I do is within childhood, right? Because as you're seeing as an educator, first and foremost, sorry, my brain is like going everywhere because it's such a juicy topic. Teachers are not respected enough because I think back in the day, it was always important a teacher's role in someone's life, but maybe back in the day it was more strict and standardized. I guess like everybody was doing the same thing, kind of token. And then now, from what you're telling us, is that this whole social and emotional component, which is I don't want to say it's mastered at a young age, but the beginnings of learning your emotions, how to communicate, what are we feeling, how do we speak, how do we share, like so many basic things that adults in today's day and age, us, we have a hard time regulating our emotions. It starts at that pivotal age of kindergarten, first grade. So I mean, I have two babies, 1 and 2, and I'm doing it with them. Right. And
Absolutely.
so, no, that's not an educational podcast, but this very much plays into human development.
Absolutely. Yeah, when you were saying that, it made me think about just like even how I spent the first 6 weeks of school just focusing on building a strong classroom community and focusing on building
Mm.
a strong sense of belonging and fostering a sense of belonging in each child, because I
Mm.
really think that there's going to be so much time in the year to focus on the academics. But if I can't get to know the child can get to know me and each other, and we can't work collaboratively and feel safe and feel like we
Yes.
can be our most authentic selves, then anything I teach them is just going to go over their head, and I'm not going to be as impactful. So the first 6 weeks of school, and even beyond that, there's a lot of, for me, from a teacher standpoint, there's a lot of focus on that. Like I do a morning meeting each day. We get to share, we get to, learn about each other. There's a lot of DEI, BJ work that I do as well, like diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, and justice, that I find incredibly important. And all of those things aren't part of the curriculum, but I
Mm,
find them so important because I'm not just teaching second graders, I'm teaching like the next leaders, the future leaders of our world. And if they can't feel supported socially, emotionally, and they can't be themselves, that's going to carry that, they're going to carry that throughout the rest of their educational careers and beyond. So this is the
yeah,
time. This is the time that I need to build them up. I need to show them how much I believe in them. I need to show them what they're capable of because,
yeah.
you know, after the last day of school, I'm not going to be with them, but hopefully what I teach them is what they carry in their lives.
Absolutely. And I think I mean, it sounds like you're doing a fantastic job. I
Thank
think
you.
about, how in the future, you're going to be a great mother because you already possess all of this knowledge and great qualities. And I mean, at the most basic point of it, you have so much love and care for these children. So, because I know you personally, right, I'm going to intertwine some things I know and what you stated on this podcast thus far. And so we're talking about child development, right? And the younger years being so pivotal. And when I met you in college, Helen is a college friend, right? And in college, we are babies. We're 18, 17, 18 until the age of 21. And so I just remember, I'm only a year older, and I remember viewing you as this very hard worker and super professional even at our young age, and would take herself very seriously, as she should, right? And all of
That's
those
funny.
all of those insights from what you're telling me now, it's like, okay, I'm connecting the dots here. It's what I do in my work. It's what I'm really good at. It's like, okay, Helen, it was super competitive with her brother at a young age, and it was just a foundational setting of, I want something in life, I'm going to go after it. Right. And then you can tell us a little bit more about, like what it was like, how hard work and determination really played a key factor in your upbringing, specifically when you moved from Dominican Republic to, was New York initially?
Yes, New
Yeah.
York. Hmm. Um, I think that's one of the things that I really want to talk about today because I think moving here to the United States from the Dominican Republic was such a defining moment in my life. I think that if I was younger, if I was in first grade or second grade, it could be like this faint memory. But it wasn't. I was very much aware. I knew who I was. I was in seventh grade. And
Mm,
here I was. My mom, I had family in the United States. My mom wanted to move here. We kind of started that with just my mom. So my mom, my brother, and I moved to the United States. My father had his business in the Dominican Republic, so he wasn't quite moving with us. It was a big change of,
mm,
let's go and pursue this life ahead of my dad and then eventually, reunite with him. But it was about, seeking this quote unquote American dream.
mm,
And I would say that I lived in comfortable circumstances. My dad had a business. We lived in an area that was good, and I think I was receiving a good education. But there's always this yearn for more, and I think having access to the United States and being able to kind of like explore that world seemed so enticing, and I that was something that my family wanted to do. So for me, it was exciting, but yet very scary, right? Like I was going to leave my life behind. I, had established, some friendships over the years. Over the years, I went to a school that was Catholic school that was kind of like from nursery until like high school. So you really get to know your cohort. Like you really get to know the
mm.
people in your class. So I knew everyone for years. My brother had done the same, and it was harder for my brother because he was older. So for me, it seemed really hard. I did want to be with my mom. It was kind of like that age of, I had some separation from my mom while she was going through the process of bringing us here. So it seemed like something I can handle and something I wanted to do because, I wanted to be wherever my mom was. It was scary, but I would say I was really positive. I went into, into the neighborhood that my mom was living in. I started school right away, and the biggest challenge was the language barrier. I had taken English classes in the Dominican Republic. I had a basic knowledge, conversational proficiency, I guess, or fluency in the language, but it didn't go beyond I'm fine. How are you? Like it was like, hi, how are you? I'm fine. How are you? Like what you learned in class.
Yeah.
And I remember like, in middle school, like, even though I was able to be with peers who were immigrants, who shared a similar experience that had come from, their countries. And I was in a bilingual program. So it was familiar, but then, you would come across people that would talk to you in English really fast. And I'm like, what? Like I couldn't understand. I couldn't. So it was challenging. But one of my most prideful moments, I would say, is just the moment that I had realized that I had mastered the language. I know that seems kind of small, but to me, I learned English and was able to be in a classroom setting, a monolingual class, so just English by the time I went to high school.
Mm.
So it only took me 2 years being in a bilingual class setting to then going into a monolingual class setting, which was in the high school I went
Mm.
to. And to me, that was huge because 3 years ago, I couldn't really, speak
Yeah.
English. And I was, not speaking English at home. My mom was speaking Spanish. My brother was speaking Spanish, and I mastered the language. And I think the reason why I think it's a defining moment for me is because it just kind of taught me how much resilience and dedication can do for you. And I didn't learn English by just talking, and I didn't just learn English. I didn't wake up one day and master the language. I watched TV with subtitles, and I had a little dictionary.
Mm.
Back in the
Oh,
days, the dictionaries were so, um, you know, such a part of like learning a language. And I remember watching TV with subtitles and recognizing words and not knowing what they meant, and really studying and really trying to master the language. I it didn't just come to me. It was
yeah.
because I
You
worked
worked for it.
hard
Hmm.
and I practiced that I was able to achieve that. And I remember asking someone, I was so determined to like, I need to, I want to be able to be fluent in English. I want to be in a monolingual class. Like I want to achieve this, this proficiency. And I remember asking someone, how will I know that I have mastered English? Like, how will I know that I'm proficient? And someone wise said to me, you will know because you'll be thinking in that language.
English.
I'll never forget that because I don't think in Spanish anymore. And while Spanish is still a huge, it's still a huge part of me. It's, speaking Spanish is still a huge part of me. I still count in Spanish. I'm not gonna lie to you. Sometimes I count or like I guess not count. I do like certain calculations that I know I went to school. Like I learned my times table in Spanish. So like
Mm.
if I'm doing like 6 times 7 in my head, I'm like, "Se por siete, 42." Like, I don't know. I have to say it in
Mm.
Spanish. So there's still certain things, but overall, I would say that I started to think in English. And I think that
Mm.
taught me a lot about what I was capable of. Um, and then the next defining moment was getting into college.
Mm.
And
Wow.
I don't want to keep going, but I think it was just certain moments that really proved to me that if you work hard,
Yeah.
you can achieve anything. And I think that's why maybe when you met me, I had kind of like embodied this, like,
Yeah.
if I'm a machine, if I work hard, like I
I
can
can
achieve
do it.
anything.
I can
I
do
can
it.
do anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's definitely who I met for sure. It's still who you are. It's still who you are, you
I'm
know?
in my soft girl era.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about that, right? So, this, I, I don't even want to say hustler really mentality because I think for you specifically, it was more like hard work will get me to better places, right? And I also sense this part of you when learning the language of like, I don't want to just be in a classroom where it's bilingual. I want to be in the classroom that is only English speaking. Like from a young age, it's almost like you've always set high standards for yourself in any arena. We're talking about your education here, but it probably transcended into many other pillars of your life, right? And while that's amazing, I'm sure it could also be very stressful, hard on yourself, things of that sort, right? And so it's all, I always express that like nothing is good or bad. It just is. It just is. The experiences that got us here, it's the reason why you are who you are today. And I know you mentioned that you're kind of on this journey of, I guess, figuring out who you are as a quote unquote healthy high performer or how you're getting there. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and like maybe what your identity is right now in terms of that?
I'm so glad you're asking this question because it is a question that I'm trying to answer for myself at the moment.
Yeah.
I feel like ever since I've had those defining moments, ever since I moved to the United States, I've been nonstop. Like it's been nonstop trying to go for the next best thing. I remember like in high school, like applying to as many scholarships as I could so I can afford college. And then it was like, okay,
Mm,
now I'm in college. Like, how am I gonna pay for college? Okay, I need to make sure I have a job. It was just like has
the
been
next thing.
nonstop going for something that was serving
Mm,
a greater purpose, whether
yeah.
it was a financial purpose, whether it was, an educational, self-development purpose. It's always been, let's work on this so that I can get this. Like, what's my next goal going to be? And so at the
Mm,
time that you met me, it was about, I'm in college, I'm studying to be a teacher. How
teaching.
can I get the best experience I can possibly get in this institution, this predominantly white institution that I
Yeah.
100% belong in, even though it was really hard to get here, even though I'm struggling in the financial aid office, occasionally, um, I just felt like I needed to take advantage. Like, how
Mm,
dare I not devote myself to my
mm,
studies? How dare I not fully, take
show
advantage
up.
of this opportunity that I was given? Like, everything my parents did so I can be here. How dare I drop the ball? That's kind of the pressure I felt.
I mean, that's the story of a lot of immigrant students, a lot of immigrant period. Like even myself, not I mean, I was born in the States, but even having immigrant parents, I felt that guilt of like, I'm not gonna be coming to this school that's like 50K a year to do nothing, to sit on my butt
Exactly.
and not show up. Like, are you crazy? Yeah, no, it was, and I'm sure even more for your story and your experience of coming from Dominican Republic. Like, yeah, it's fully there. It's a common story that a lot of immigrant families, individuals, and people of immigrant parents share. So yeah, I mean that makes complete sense to me. What I'm seeing here is that like, so you said that you're in your soft girl era, right? Because you've been for so long, like next, next, next. It's like, can I breathe? So my healthy high performer page on Instagram is really about, it's my story. It's me being a healthy high performer, but for a long time it wasn't healthy. For a long time it was always striving for more, more, more. Then I had to do the inner work of like, why is it always the next thing? And can I appreciate the present time more? And it's in my innate being to always grow as is you, to always excel to the next level of life. But can we do it now a little bit softer? Can we do it now, including more of the feminine energy, of resting and playfulness and gratitude and stillness, mindfulness, alongside I can't change who I am, and I'm proud of who I am. I think you are too, of like, I've accomplished a lot of things in my life. And I know I want to continue doing more, but it's the mindset behind it. Because I know for me personally, in my younger years, that inner voice, that inner critic wasn't very nice when I wouldn't get the things that I wanted to get, especially right away or in the manner that I thought it was supposed to happen.
100%. I
Yeah.
definitely resonate with that. I remember when I first, so prior to teaching, I was into sports and I've always been very competitive. So I played tennis for a long time in the Dominican Republic. As soon as I came here from the Dominican Republic, I joined sports teams. I was always in this competitive environment, which, attributed a lot to who I am today. And so, I also was gifted in many ways. I was
Yeah.
a fast runner, I would come in second place, or I remember like I was, the most improved player my freshman year on the varsity softball team. I made the varsity softball
Mm.
team my first year. I had all these wins, wins, wins that I kind of, I gained a lot of confidence and belief in myself. Then when I started teaching, and teaching wasn't exactly what my professors, were teaching me. And, I was
Mm.
teaching in I remember, one of my first jobs, I was teaching in, it was like a summer job in Harlem, and I was teaching sixth grade, and I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And I say that because there's so much more to teaching than just the teaching part.
Yeah.
And I remember struggling a lot, and I wasn't good at it. And I remember, doing
Mm.
like having like a power struggle with a student. And I would never do that now because I have learned so much, but I remember making a lot of mistakes. And even, when I had my first full year of teaching, I remember being so disappointed
Mm.
in myself. Like I held myself to such a high standard. I went to school for this. I
Mm.
This is all I've ever known. School is all I've ever known. Why am I not good at this?
When I went into teaching, I sort of said, oh, well, I'm the teacher, so they're just going to listen to me, and it doesn't work that way. It
Mm.
doesn't work that way at all. And I had to learn a lot about classroom management. I had to, dive deeper into child development to really understand how I can make academic gains in the classroom. And
Yeah.
so I struggled so much. And I think the reason why I say I'm in my soft girl era is because I'm in this comfortable place
Mm.
in which I feel like I'm not at the finish line. I'm not done. I think there's
Right.
still so much that I want to accomplish. But I also feel that I got so far in my young age, my 30 years of life.
Yeah.
I was able to, come to a new country and learn a new language and, seek higher education despite the financial hardships that me and my family endured. I was able to, get a master's degree and now I've been teaching for almost a decade. And so now I'm in this comfortable place of, I also forgot to mention my partner and I bought a home recently, which to me is
Huge
like, which,
milestones.
oh, I'm sorry, what did you say?
Huge milestones for an everyday 30-year-old, right, versus all of the adversities that you had to go through. It's not a competition of like, my life is harder and I got here, but yes, you've been through a lot and you've accomplished so many things, and you're short. We're babies. We're like
We're
fetuses.
so young.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely. So that's kind of why I'm like, okay, so we purchased this home. It was like, to be honest, I'm at this place where it's not that I think that I'm finished. I just kind of feel like
You can rest.
I can rest because everything that I kind of like almost only planned up to this point. Like I
Mm.
said, okay, I want to become a teacher. Okay, I became a teacher. I said I want to be in a committed, relationship with someone. I want to feel stable in my love life. Okay, I feel that way. And one of my biggest goals was I want to be able to own a home.
Mm.
That's how I can build generational wealth
Mhm.
like that. Okay, I did that, and now what? It's not that there aren't any goals.
Ah.
I just feel like I can rest now because everything that I wanted to do through so much hard work and dedication, I've been able to get to this place, and now I just want to enjoy it.
Yeah, as
And
you should.
yeah, and like people ask me like, "Oh, like you're such a great teacher." Like, I've been offered like, "Why don't you apply for assistant principal?" When I worked at the charter school, there's younger assistant principals, and there's a lot of push for like seeking the next thing. So I was asked like, "Why don't you apply for this?" or "Why don't you go for this?" And the old Helen would have said, "Oh yeah, I have to do that. I have to go
Mm.
for the next thing. Like I can't just be a teacher. Like I'm a leader. I have to try to push myself and challenge myself. And teaching is not easy, even after,
10 years.
decades of teaching. It's never the same. It's not prescribed. You're never gonna have the same year. So it's not, I don't think I'm lacking a challenge. I think I'm still very much being challenged at work, but I just don't think that I need to strive for something greater when what I have is already
Great.
great, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. I mean, it's so complex. Like, your life trajectory has also been like change after change after change. Sometimes subconsciously, we just crave change just because it's all that we know. So it's like, well, don't get too comfortable. Let's do the next thing. And it just seems like you're healing and you have more insight. And so it's like, yeah, I'm still being challenged in my teacher role that is super impactful. And I'm still, changing lives, molding brains, hearts, literally all the things. And I don't have to go for the next big thing career wise just yet. Like I can be comfortable with where I'm at, knowing that I'm making a grand impact here and this is where I want to be right now in my life. And I'm okay with that,
Definitely.
which
And
is
it's
beautiful.
sort of like, I'm sorry, you can go ahead.
No, no, nothing, which is beautiful. Go ahead, girly.
Thank you. No, I was just gonna say it kind of comes up in other aspects of my life. And I think
Mm.
sometimes when I'm really tired and I just want to rest all day, I can be really hard on myself. Like, what, like I just wasted the day. I was so unproductive. Like,
Mhm,
why
mhm,
why did I do this? Like, I could have gotten so much done. I only
mhm,
have 2 days off work, Saturday and Sunday. Like, why did I leave all my errands to Sunday? And
mm.
I do battle with that, and I know we can probably talk about it a little bit later, but it's kind of managing that in accepting rather that it's okay to do nothing sometimes, and it's okay to be still and just relish that moment, and relaxing is productive. And
Yeah.
I've come to learn that I didn't do that before. I think I just went for the next big thing, or like I didn't give allow myself any room to relax. I needed to be a part of something. And now my life does revolve around, work, home, and the relationships I have with people. I could join some sort of team. I've been thinking, oh, should I do CrossFit? Like that's a competitive setting that I like. And,
Mhm.
I'll work on my physical health. But is that going to add more stress
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
moment than it would give me that satisfaction? So I guess that's why I'm in this soft girl era where I'm just like, I'm going to take things day by day. I'm going to listen to myself, listen to my body, and reflect. I just have to reflect like, is where I am enough for me right now? Or can I do something else that would bring more joy for me? Because to me right now, it's joy, family, and just, it's really joy and it's really family and giving back in the
Yeah.
school setting.
I think you're in a perfect place to do some deep inner reflection. We can go there now. So, from what you're telling me, so this it's not really like a struggle, but you're kind of going through phases where you find your overproductive part of self shout for like help or like I miss being super productive, and so she's the one who makes you think like you got to do something on Saturdays, you can't chill, or you should join that CrossFit team. It's like this chatter of like you should do something, do something, do something, where your more conscious, let's say rational self is like, no, we could chill, like I'm really trying to just take life day by day and see where I'm going with that. um there's so much like pop psychology, and it's great because we're all kind of being more informed. And what would be really helpful for you, I think, is to start asking reflective questions like, when she does come up for you, that part of you that's like, I want to do more, asking her, like, what's going on? Like, what's coming up for you right now? And why is it that you do want to do more? When we go to the immediate, nah, girl, chill, like, we've made it in life, like, it's it's a good thought. It's a good intention of like, I want to calm myself down. Like, that's part one of it. Part two, to go deeper, is like, well, if you want her to nicely shut up one day, to not always yearn for like the next thing. And it's not that we're going to be complacent. She's just working off of habit. She's just always been on to the next thing, right? From a young age. So it's not that you're complacent. It's just that she doesn't know any other way to be. And if you want her to one day calm down for real, and really heal and settle and then make proactive choices because you really want to do this thing, not just because you want to fill up time, right?
Right.
You ask her, you hold space for her, you allow her to yell, cry, scream. Like it's like a little girl in your classroom. If she was always like, Miss You, me, yeah, I want to be the leader, like me, I want to read like all the things, which I'm sure you have students like that.
At
Um,
100% at the moment.
yeah, it's like, hey, like it would be so productive. It would be so sentimental to sit her down one day and be like, hey, why is it that you always raise your hand to be the first one to read? And it's not a good or bad thing. It's just a curious question to help her reflect. Why do you do that all the time? Like you're always doing that, and if you ask yourself those questions, what do you think she would say? If you could look inward right now, it's like, why does she always want to do something? Why does she do that?
um, this is really hard to say, but I think I do a lot of comparing. And I
Okay,
know that's very
it's okay. We're on it.
normal. I know it's very normal in today's age. I know with social media, it's very normal to compare yourself. But I think I compare myself to previous versions of me, or I compare myself to other people. And
Mhm.
when I compare myself to other people, I'm not trying to be better than them.
Mhm.
I'm sort of just trying to tell myself that if they can do it, I can do it too.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that makes sense, but one thing I've been struggling with this year is the concept of time, and I haven't always been the most timely person, but I find that this year I want to do more than the time I have. And I get very frustrated with myself, even in the classroom or at home. I have, a very long commute to work. So when I come home, I have very limited time. And so in the weekend, it's like my prime time. I have these 48 hours in which I can rest.
Mhm.
I can focus on my other passions, like my home decor, page. I can do something sports related that I love, or I can also run errands. It's like so many things I can
Mhm.
do, and I want to do them all because I want to feel a sense of accomplishment, and because I see other people are doing things like people are joining CrossFit teams. I see
Yeah.
people are doing fall activities. I see that people are, you know, just
Mm.
handling more than just like this rest period. And so
Mhm.
it pushes me in a way like, why am I not doing that? If they
Mm.
can do it, why can't I do it? And with time, it's like, one example is like one of my coworkers, she kind of told me that she struggles with traffic too, but she's been leaving, much, much earlier. And I think she said she leaves, like, she gives herself like over like an hour of time to get to work. And she gives herself like maybe like an hour and a half. She gets to work every day, like an hour and a half before. And to me, that sounds so tempting. Like, I want to get to work and imagine how much I can get done if I get to work an
Mm.
hour before. So I
Oh,
compare myself. Does that
okay.
make sense? I compare myself and I say, okay, she's waking up at 5:30 or 5 in the morning. She's getting a lot done. I
Yeah.
need to wake up earlier. But then I have this realization that my home circumstance is different
Different.
and
Hmm.
my commute is different.
Yeah.
So, do I want to wake up earlier and give myself all this time to get to work? Absolutely. But I also would have to leave my house much earlier
Yeah.
than she does because she lives closer. So it's just this battle of if they can do it, I can do it. And if I do it, I'll experience more success. But
I
then there's
think.
this other side of me telling me, you don't have the same circumstances. You have your own. challenges, in your personal life or in your home life, or your responsibilities are different. So I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. I think what would be really helpful to, so kind of, you can tell me if this is right or wrong. Like when this initial voice of like, they're doing it so I can do it, it almost feels like a jump, like a
Like an
new,
impulse.
like an impulse, right? And so when she does that, I'm calling her she because I want to differentiate her from you. The more that
Okay.
you do that, the easier it'll be to be like, oh, she's showing up again, right? Because
There
that's
she
what,
is.
there she is. It's like she is always there. Like, even when we make it comical, like it really helps the healing process because healing doesn't have to be so like woo or boo. Like it's all the things, right? And so it can be
Right.
comical. And it's like, there you go again, just showing up everywhere you need to be. Like, we don't have to do all the things, little girl. Like, just chill. But then at the same time, it's like, let me hold space for you. Like, I see you jumping at this opportunity. So when you're telling me these things, I'm like, oh, that's not what Helen wants. She doesn't know what she wants. I think you're in a moment of time right now where it's just like, you're figuring out what you want to do next. Like you said, everything that you had hoped and dreamed for, you have right now, right? The home, the teacher, the partner, all the things. So it's like now this little girl, she's just jumping at anything, which we understand why she's doing that for good reason. All she's ever done is reach for the next thing. But here we have adult Helen who's like, yeah, I don't really know what the next thing is for me right now. And we're learning because you're not fully there yet, and it's okay. We're learning that that's okay. You're understanding that, but she does not get that. So when these pop psychology terms of like reparenting your inner child come into play, that's what they're talking about. Conscious adult Helen know that it's cool and fine to relax and chill and just wait for the answers to come to you in a very feminine, receptive mode. But she's very masculine. She's like, no, I'm a go-getter. If they can do it, I can do it. Oh, she's getting to work 90 minutes early. I can do that. And it's like, yeah, you can, but do you want to do that?
That is true.
And so you're battling of like, no, but like my work life is different and I live somewhere different and I have a dog and I have a puppy, and it's like, yeah, like your rational self is coming in, but she doesn't see any of that. Remember, you're a teacher, so a child, this is your inner child, an egoic child. All of our egos are just our inner childs. And so our childlike self is like, I want, I want, I want, and I want this now. There's no reasoning, there's no rationality. That's just how she functions, right? As I'm sure you see all the time in the classroom. Like
Right.
your students, that's Helen, that's baby Helen. And all the adults, it's funny because you said at one point that even within 10 years of teaching, or in the first years of teaching that, I couldn't just stand up and tell kids what to do. It's like, yeah, most definitely not. But that happens the same in any environment. You can't even walk into any adult atmosphere and just command, people what to do. No one, your motive of having connection and inclusion is so vital for rapport and safety and stability so that they can trust you and then move further. That you got to do with adults anywhere you go. If you're the CEO of a company, like it's the same thing. We just think that it only revolves around children. And then for you and your inner child healing process, you got to do that to her. She's gonna keep jumping the gun, and if every single time you're like, nah, girl, just chill, she's not gonna feel safe.
No.
So you have to slowly but surely mold that environment for her to be like, hey, girl, why are you jumping so much today? Like, why are you fiending so much to be like the others? And you're saying that with love to let her tell you slowly, but it's not a one day fix. It's every single time. Also, like working somatically with the body. Like if she resides in your stomach area, if like somebody is doing something and you're like, I want to do that thing, that's her. And so then you can notice, where does she live in my body? Is she in my throat? Is she in my chest? Is she in my stomach? And where is she always punching to do the next thing? And when she punches, like a good teacher, being proactive, right? Having a plan for when this happens again, because it will happen again. How can I be better? How can I be a better supporter to her at that time?
Do you think the answer and it's not that I'm seeking an answer, but do you think that the ultimate answer to that is acceptance? Is it like compromise?
Nope.
Is it like,
Nope.
is there like, one specific route?
No. No. And that's how I know that that's her talking, because she wants, give me the answer now so I can get there tomorrow.
No. I know
Yeah.
that sounds like that. I guess I'm so, I'm afraid to do the wrong thing. Like, I'm
Mhm.
afraid to shut her down, or I guess not, it's not even shutting her down, because I don't want to shut her down. I want, if she was a student in my classroom, I wouldn't want to shut her down. I want to
Right.
listen to her, and I want to get to the root of the problem. So, or I guess I want that unmet need to be catered, and I
Yeah.
want it to be met.
Yes.
So my fear is, would I be leaning into the wrong direction? Like, am I ever going to be accepting something that I shouldn't accept? I don't know if that makes any sense. My mind is going everywhere
That's
because I'm not
okay.
looking for a definite answer. It's more like
I'll give you an answer. This is an
I'm
answer.
afraid to do the wrong thing, I
You
guess.
can't. You literally can't. So the answer is your number one goal forever is going to be connection. The same way it is for your students. Your fear of like, am I going to support her the right way? Like, how do we get to this? The only way you can do that is by having love and connection and belongingness. Someone is scared and they react different ways behaviorally due to their fear. I was telling a client the other day, like, there's 3 neighborhood dogs in front of our house. One of them bites when they're scared, one of them runs away when they're scared, and one of them barks when they're scared. They're all just scared, right? And
Right.
so if my goal is to fix the behavior, no matter what the fixing is or the behavior is, the first thing I got to do is build rapport, connection, and belongingness. That dog has to trust me. Then I can hold
Right.
space. Then I can hug the dog. Then I can show the dog love. And then eventually the dog will be like, yo, I'm scared shitless whenever that doorbell rings. That's why I'm barking.
That's so true.
Like, I don't like that mailman. That's why I bite. He reminds me of blank, blank, blank. Like, okay, thank you for
Yeah,
letting me know. Like, then I can help
yeah.
you.
Right, right. I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. It's exactly what I do with my everyday work life.
Correct.
And it's, I really am so thankful that you're, shedding light on it, because I have so many other, thoughts that I couldn't see that clearly. I couldn't see that connection clearly, that it's just like the relationship I have with my students is a relationship I need to have with my inner child.
Yes. Yes. Beautiful. Yeah. And once you gain that perspective, which you've already have, it's a practice. You got to practice it, right? Then you literally bring that forth to all adults. What teachers are such beautiful beings, and like I love you as a person. I love the work that you do, and I really love like teachers are such monumental shapeshifters for the next generation. Truly, right? And we're seeing that now. Teachers are becoming more educated. Parents, humans are becoming more educated on the developmental process of, tiny brains and how we perceive and absorb and all the things. And you just got to take all that info that you already have and apply it to self. I want to thank you for being here, girly. I hope that the ending was helpful for you and to our listeners. I hope it was helpful for them too. I know it will be, because I know so many of us struggle with the back and forth, dialogue of like this, that, and just really being in our heads and forgetting that we have an entire body. A lot of like old school traditional, even like clinical therapy talk, it's like all talk, and it's like, yeah, that's super imperative, it's super important, and we have a whole body. So when I ask you questions like where does she reside, where is she living in your gut area, like our body is so powerful and full of so much wisdom. So thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for sharing your story. I think your story of resilience across your journey of coming to the States, learning a new language, having education be a foundational pillar everywhere you go, really has been a beautiful story to share with us. So thank you so much, girly.
Thank you for your time, and you definitely left me thinking. I have some homework to do. I definitely some food for thought, and this has been an honor to be here. I love your healthy high performer podcast, and it's been an honor.
Thank you for tuning into Mindset Mastery with Julissa Edwards. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast to receive future episodes packed with valuable insights. Remember to follow us on social media at thehealthy.highperformer for more inspiration, tips, and updates. If you found this episode helpful, we'd appreciate it if you could share it with your network and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your support means the world to us as we continue to empower high performers like you. Until next time, keep mastering your mindset and thriving as a healthy high performer.